What's up, sixth graders? This is lesson 7, day 2. Yesterday we explored what dividing fractions would kind of look like, and we learned about words like reciprocal. We learned that to divide by a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. So today we're going to explore dividing a whole number by a fraction. And we're going to start with a problem that would be complicated if I weren't going to show you these strategies they provided us with. So first off, if your book is not on page 6061, pause this video now and go get it. So let's get started. So this says, read the problem below, then explore how to divide a whole number by a fraction. So this says Kelly drank 2/5 of the water in her bottle. So I'm going to circle that. Okay. It says she drank 3 cups of water. So think about that. She drank 2/5 of whatever's in her water bottle, and that 2/5 that she drank is 3 cups. And the question says, how many total cups of water were in the bottle? All right, so these tend to be a little more complicated, but if you can draw a picture or use a model, it will help you solve it. So let's take a look at what they're saying. It says you can draw a picture to understand the problem. It says the bar represents Kelly's water bottle. You can divide the bar into fifths and shade 2/5 to represent the amount of water Kelly drank, 3 cups. All right, so let's take it here. I know they have this model drawn, but I want to show you what they did. So going up into the problem, she drank 2/5 of the water in her bottle, right? So they're like, okay, let's have this bar represent her bottle. Let's split it into fifths. And let's shade 2/5. Okay, so there's the 2/5, right? Then the next thing they did is they are saying, okay, well, the 2/5 that she drank is 3 cups. So they're like, all right, let's label that 3 cups. And then they thought, well, if 2/5 are 3 cups, if we split those 3 cups in half, that means that each fifth would be 1.5 cups. Because that's half of 3, right? And there's 2 of them, so we just split it in half. And what we have to find out, it says, how many total cups were in her water bottle. So the whole water bottle, we don't know how many cups. So I just drew exactly what they did to help me understand the problem. All right. So now, by the way, I could happen to use these numbers to answer that question, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, so that's drawing a picture. Notice we use nice rectangles because we can all handle those. But now, let's talk about the model down here below. So it says you can use words and equations to understand the problem. So remember, what she did, and they have it here in your book, but I'm going to show you, is they're saying, okay, she drank 2/5 of the water bottle. And that 2/5 of the water bottle would equal 3 cups. And they used this information to help them write an equation. So they said, well, 2/5, we know of means times, and 2/5, whatever is in the water bottle, we don't know that, has to equal 3 cups. So 2/5 times whatever's in the water bottle has to equal 3 cups. But now, how can we use that multiplication problem with a missing factor to solve the problem? So here's what they're saying, and I think this is kind of cool. To solve a missing factor problem like 2/5 times question mark equals 3, you can divide to get your answer. So all you have to do is take the 3, divide it by the 2/5, and you will get your answer. So this, remember, our lesson is about dividing whole numbers by fractions. So what we're doing is we use that model to understand that, okay, we'd have a multiplication problem with a missing number, but we can solve those through division. And that's what we're going to work on the next page. So remember, you can pause this video at any time, but now we're going to go over to page 61 on your right. So in this one, we're going to work on the connect it in a second. So your job says now you will solve the problem from the previous page using the picture and the model. So you are going to pause the video and work on 2 through 6 on your own. Now remember, it is okay if you're not sure. I want you to give it your best shot. If you're wrong, so what? That's what erasers are for. So pause the video, do 2 through 6 now, and restart the video when you're done, and we'll go over your answers. Go. Okay, so now you should be done with 2 through 6 if you're watching this again. And notice I brought the picture from the previous page over, so I don't have to be scrolling back and forth. So 2 says, look at the picture on the previous page. Why do you divide the bar into fifths? So they want to know, why did we say divide this into 5 pieces? Now remember, you don't have to have the same exact words for me, but here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say because, and what was the person's name? I kind of forget. Because Kelly. That was it. Because Kelly drank 2/5 of the bottle, I split the rectangle into 5/5. If Kelly drank 2/3 of the bottle, we would split the bottle into thirds. Okay? All right, remember, pause this video anytime you need, and you don't have to have my exact words. 3 says, how can you use Picture It to find out how many cups of water were in the bottle? So I'm going to show you how I could do that, and you might have something totally different. Now remember, with the Picture It, we figured out that these 3 cups split into 2 equal pieces would give you a half cup in each of those pieces, right? Because 1.5 plus 1.5 equals 3. Now that would then mean that each of these fifths has 1.5 cups in it, right? So how would I use this picture to answer the question? Well, 1, I could multiply 1.5 by 5, or I can just add up my 1.5s. So watch what I'm going to do. I'll switch to purple so you guys can see. I know that these 1.5s equal 3. These 1.5s also equal 3, plus this final 1.5. Okay? I would add up 3 plus 3 plus the 1 whole, which is 7, and bring down the half. So the answer is going to be 7.5. So what I'm going to say for my answer for 3, which might be totally different than what you did, is I'm going to say the Picture It, or from the Picture It, I knew each fifth was 1.5 cups. So I added 1.5 5 times, which is 7.5 cups. So that's how I use the picture to solve the problem. You may have used the picture differently. If you got 7.5, then you're good though. So 4 says, how many total cups of water were in Kelly's bottle? Well, I just answered it. 7.5 cups. All right, now 5 says, look at the model on the previous page. Find 3 2/5. And I believe under there it says, show your work. Okay, I got out of rid of the picture, so it does say show your work. So what I'm going to do is, if I remember from yesterday, that taking 3 divided by 2/5 is the same thing as doing 3 times the reciprocal, 5/2. And I'm going to rewrite that as 3/1 times 5/2. And I'm going to solve that. 3 times 5 is 15. I'll switch to red here. 1 times 2 is 2. Now 15 halves is an improper fraction. So if I have 15 halves, I know that 15 halves is the same as 7 wholes and 1/2. So I can use division of fractions to come up with the same answer. last. 6 says, explain how to use multiplication to divide a whole number by a fraction. So I'm just going to kind of explain basically what I just did. I would say you can divide any whole number by any fraction if you just multiply that whole number by the fraction's reciprocal. That's reciprocal, if you forgot how to spell it. So that's all I said. You can divide any number by a fraction if you multiply by its reciprocal. Remember, you don't need my exact words, but make sure that your answer explains how you can use multiplication to divide a fraction. All right, so now we're going to go down to these last two problems. We're going to kind of do 7, get you set up together, and then we'll have you do 8. So the try it problem says use what you just learned about dividing with fractions to solve these problems. Show your work on a separate sheet of paper. You can also show your work down here if you need to. So 7 says, how many 1.5 cup servings are there in 12 cups of juice? So let's get this one set up together. First off, be careful with the order because we're trying to figure out how many 1.5s are in 12. So what that means is we're taking 12 and we're dividing it by 1.5. Okay, so that's going to be our division problem. So worry about the order there. Next, to divide by a fraction, we have to multiply by its reciprocal. But we need to be able to figure out the reciprocal of 1.5. Now, first off, remember 1.5 as a fraction is 3 halves. If you forget how to do that, all I did was I did the 1 times the 2, which is 2, plus 1, which got me that 3. The denominator always stays the same. Now that I have it as an improper fraction, 3 halves, now I can find the reciprocal. So I'm going to take 12 times, I have to flip it to 2/3. Okay, you see what I just did? I found the reciprocal of 3 halves and I flipped it to 2/3. Remember, you can pause anytime you need time to get caught up. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve that. So I'm going to write that as 12 over 1. Write them as a fraction. So then you do 12 times the 2, which is 24. 1 times the 3, which is 3. And 24/3, remember, that's the same thing as 24 divided by 3. And that equals 8. So remember, the question in 7 says, how many 1.5 cup servings are there in 12 cups of juice? The answer is 8 servings. So you just did number 7 with me, right? So you could pause, get caught up if I was going too fast. But now, here is your job. Your job is to read number 8. And I want you to do that one completely on your own. Do your best. Pause the video while you're doing it and restart it when you are done. Remember, you can look at this work if you forget the steps. That is totally okay. All right, do number 8 on your own. Pause the video, restart it when you're done. Go. Okay, so let's see how you did. So 8 says, I'm going to erase all this junk here so I have more room. Okay, 8 says, it takes Emily 9 minutes to bicycle 3/10 of the way to school. How many minutes does it take Emily to bicycle all the way to school? Okay, so 9 minutes to bicycle 3/10 of the way to school. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a model, kind of like we did on the previous page, to help me understand this problem. So imagine this rectangle represents all of Emily's, the time it takes her to get all the way to school. Now remember, we don't know how long it takes her to get to school. So that's going to be blank minutes, right? Now here's what we do know. It takes her 9 minutes to bicycle 3/10 of the way. So if I split this into tenths, ten sections, and to go 3/10 of the way, these 3/10 right here, it takes her 9 minutes. Okay? So here's what we know. We know that 3/10 of the entire trip to school, which we don't know, takes 9 minutes. Okay, think about that. 3/10 of the entire trip takes 9 minutes. We also know that of means times. So when we have a multiplication problem with a missing factor like that, we can just use division to solve it. So I can start with the 9, and I can divide it by 3/10 to get my answer, my question mark. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the division problem I'm going to do. So did you do 9 divided by 3/10? That's my question for you. So to do 9 divided by 3/10, remember I can multiply by its reciprocal. I can do 9, which I'm going to write as 9 over 1, times 10 over 3. And to solve that, 9 times 10 is 90. 1 times 3 is 3. And 90 divided by 3 is 30 minutes. So that's my question to you. How long did it take Emily to go all the way to school? It took her 30 minutes. Did you get that one? If you didn't, you pause the video, you make your corrections, no big deal. But you are done with the video for today. So, as always, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later.